The Muddy Miracle. How 6,000 starving Englishmen destroyed France's elite army. Picture this. You're standing knee-deep in freezing mud. You haven't had a proper meal in weeks, and you're staring at an army 3 times your size. Every single one of those blokes across the field is covered head to toe in the finest armor money can buy, and they're absolutely convinced they're about to wipe you off the face of the earth. What do you do? Well, if you're King Henry V on the 25th of October, 1415, you're about to pull off one of the most spectacular victories in military history. This is a story of Agincourt, and trust me, it's absolutely mental. Let's set the scene properly, shall we? It's the crack of dawn, somewhere in northern France. The rain's been hammering down all night, turning freshly plowed farmland into what can only be described as a massive, sticky death trap. The kind of mud that doesn't just slow you down, it actively tries to swallow you whole. And standing in this absolute mess are 2 armies who couldn't be more different if they tried. On one side, you've got the English. These lads have had an absolutely shocking few weeks. They're exhausted, they're starving, and half of them are probably still recovering from dysentery, which had already killed hundreds of their mates. Their king, Henry, is only 29 years old. But he has got this gnarly scar across his face from a battle he fought when he was just a teenager. He'd come to France that summer full of ambition, captured a port in Normandy, and then watched his army fall apart from disease and hunger. Now he's just trying to get his remaining troops to Calais, to safety, before winter properly sets in. But the French have other ideas, because on the other side of that muddy field, the French are feeling proper confident. They've got roughly 20,000 troops, the absolute cream of French nobility. We're talking knights in shining armor, literally. Heavy cavalry that looks like it's just rolled off a medieval postcard. These blokes are eager for glory, eager for ransom money, and absolutely gagging for revenge after years of English raids on their homeland. They've got some serious commanders too, Constable Chausilbreth, the Duke of Wellington, and loads of other nobles, whose names would mean something if you were living in 15th century France. And they're all thinking the same thing. This is going to be easy. Now, Henry's got maybe 6,000 men left. About 5,000 of them are longbowmen, and only 1,000 are proper men-at-arms, the heavily armored infantry. But here's the thing. These aren't green recruits. These are veterans who've been hardened by weeks of absolute misery. And those longbows they're carrying, absolutely devastating weapons. Nearly 6 feet tall, capable of sending an arrow over 250 yards. Each arrow's a yard long with an iron tip, and in the right hands, it's lethal. The battlefield itself is sandwiched between 2 little woods, which creates this natural funnel that's going to completely mess up the French numerical advantage. Henry spots this straight away. Clever lad. He arranges his men in one long line, men-at-arms in the center, longbowmen on both flanks, and here, as the brilliant bit, they hammer sharpened wooden stakes into the ground in front of the archers. It's like medieval barbed wire, designed to absolutely ruin any cavalry charge. The French, meanwhile, are so confident in their numbers and their heavy cavalry that they basically don't bother with strategy. They reckon they'll just steamroll the English through sheer force. Spoiler alert, that's not how this is going to play out. As dawn breaks, the English soldiers kneel down and kiss the muddy ground. Henry rides along the line in his helmet, wearing a surcoat decorated with the arms of both England and France, because he's making a claim to both kingdoms. He speaks to his men in English and French, telling them to stand firm, be brave, do all the things a king's supposed to say before a massive battle. Then, nothing happens. Both sides just stand there. 4 hours. It's this bizarre waiting game. The French expect Henry to attack first. Henry's not falling for it. He realizes that the French have got plenty of supplies, plenty of food. Henry orders his line to move forward, not charging, just advancing, closing the gap, forcing the battle to start. When they stop the longbowmen, plant their stakes again. Then Henry gives the order. Loose. Imagine the sky going dark, not from clouds, from arrows, thousands upon thousands of arrows, whistling through the air. The longbowmen are firing 5 or 6 arrows every minute, and they don't stop. The arrows rain down on the French front ranks. Horses start screaming. Knights are falling. The beautiful, orderly formation starts falling apart before the battle's even properly begun. The French cavalry decides to charge, but remember that mud we talked about. These knights are wearing full plate armor. Brilliant for protection. Absolutely rubbish for moving through thick, clinking clay. The horses are struggling, stumbling, falling over. Riders are getting flung to the ground, and all the while, the arrows just keep coming. By the time the French cavalry actually reaches the English line, the horses are absolutely knackered, and the formation's completely chaotic. The longbowmen, protected by those wooden stakes they planted, just keep firing. Thousands of arrows cutting down cavalry left and right. Horses are slipping, crushing their own riders. It's absolute carnage. Eventually, the survivors grab their reins and leg it back the way they came. So the French cavalry's failed. What does the French commander do? Sends in the infantry. Men-at-arms and heavy infantry, all armored up, carrying two-handed poleaxes, axes, maces, massive swords. They've got to march a few hundred yards through that waterlogged mud whilst wearing all that armor and carrying all those weapons. It's exhausting work, and it slows them down considerably. Now, historians still debate this, but most reckon the longbows could penetrate the thinner armor on limbs, even from 220 yards away, and they could definitely hit the weak points. Eye holes, breathing holes in helmets, gaps in the joints. When you've got tens of thousands of arrows being fired every single minute, a lot of them are going to find those weak spots. A lot of French soldiers don't even make it to the English line. But some do. The ones who survived that horrific march crash into Henry's men-at-arms with sheer momentum. The longbowmen on the flanks keep firing, and now the French are at point-blank range. The arrows are even more devastating, but more and more French infantry keep pouring forward. They've got at least a 10-to-1 advantage. Thing is, they're absolutely shattered from that march through the mud, and they're disorganized as anything. The English men-at-arms meet them with poleaxes, swords, and hammers. Henry himself is right there in the thick of it, fighting alongside his troops, but it's becoming obvious that they can't hold back this many French soldiers forever. Henry starts giving ground, slowly edging back towards his longbowmen. Many of the archers have run out of arrows by now, so they throw aside their bows and jump into the melee with mallets, hatchets, swords, whatever they've got, and this is where it gets absolutely brilliant. The longbowmen on both wings, who still have arrows, move to surround the flanks of the French infantry. Then they start firing straight into the vulnerable sides of the French troops at point-blank range. Devastating. Once they've emptied their quivers, they drop their bows and charge straight into the fight. Because they're quicker and lighter than the heavily armored French, and because of where they're positioned, they manage to completely flank the French forces. They've caught them in an envelopment. The tide of the battle shifts completely. The French can't believe what's happening. They had every advantage. Superior numbers, better armor, more knights, more nobles. And now, they're the ones who are surrounded on all sides, staring defeat in the face. The fighting becomes absolutely brutal. The narrow field forces the French to crowd together, shoulder to shoulder. It gets so bad, they can barely swing their weapons properly. Knights are slipping and falling in the mud, getting trampled by their own men as more waves push forward from behind. The mud, churned up by thousands of feet, is swallowing people whole. Henry's still in the thick of it. At one point, the Duke of Agincourt breaks through and actually strikes Henry's crown, denting it. Henry's bodyguards cut the Duke down, and Henry just keeps fighting, rallying his men. By late morning, it's over. The French assault has collapsed. Thousands are dead or wounded. The great French nobles who were so confident that morning, many of them are lying in the mud. Constable, Charles d'Ilbray, the Dukes of Alençon and Brabant, countless knights and squires. English longbowmen swarm over the wounded, taking prisoners or finishing them off. Then something happens that's going to become one of the most controversial moments of the battle. A false alarm spreads that French troops are attacking from behind. It's actually just a raid on the English baggage train. But Henry doesn't know that. He's terrified that the prisoners might rearm themselves and join a fresh fight. His men are absolutely exhausted. They couldn't withstand another attack, so Henry makes a grim decision. He orders all the prisoners kill. His troops, grim-faced, obey. Hundreds of captives, many of them high-born nobles worth massive ransoms, are executed before the threat proves to be false. It's brutal, it's controversial, and historians are still debating whether it was necessary. The remainder of the French army, absolutely demoralized, decides to retreat. Live to fight another day. The numbers tell the story. French casualties, somewhere between 6,000 and 10,000, depending on which source you read. English losses, maybe 600. Let that sink in. Henry's tiny, exhausted, starving army had just annihilated a force 3 times its size through discipline, clever use of terrain, and the absolutely deadly power of the longbow. The Battle of Agincourt cemented Henry V's reputation as one of England's greatest warrior kings. It showed that a smaller, well-disciplined force, with the right tactics and the right weapons, could overcome overwhelming odds. It proved that technology, in the form of the longbow, could change the course of battles, and it demonstrated that sometimes the underdog really does win. So the next time you're facing impossible odds, remember those English soldiers standing in the mud at Agincourt. Sometimes all it takes is clever thinking, determination, and refusing to give up even when everything looks hopeless. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of history's most incredible battles, smash that like button and subscribe for more stories from history that'll absolutely blow your mind. Trust me, there are plenty more where this came from. Until next time, cheers.